Fun Ideas Productions presents the Fun Ideas Podcast.
We see the syphilitic shrinking obelisk, the white man's wilting dick. We see through dangling jowls of seedy game show trolls the smiling lie of the televised hive. The witches are watching with their thousand eyes. Witches are watching with their thousand eyes. We smell rotten teeth that speak beyond belief. A stick inside their skull would...
Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and welcome to Fun Ideas Podcast number 61. This episode is sponsored by the fine folks at Lee's Comics.
Hi, I'm George Takei. You know me as Helmsman Sulu on Star Trek. When I'm not busy going Warp Factor 8, I like to beam down to Lee's Comics in Mountain View and spend a lazy afternoon reading comics classics from Marvel to DC, from Dark Horse to Fantagraphics, and everything in between. So please, spend some time here at Lee's Comics and spend your hard-earned cash.
The Fun Ideas Podcast is made possible by listeners like you and from Lee's Comics of California, selling you what your mother threw out since 1982, online at leescomics.com. Headquartered, the book on the monkey's solo career is just about done. My co-author Michael A. Ventrella will be attending Beetlefest and selling copies of it, and our previous Monkeys book there, taking advance orders if necessary. I'm still doing the final edits and image placement for the Total Television scrapbook. It looks really good, and I will be turning it in soon. I just got the assignment to do an article for Back Issue Magazine on Underdog, and I may have another article for them on Hee-Haw! The Warren Kramer book is due back from the publisher, and I'm still working on my own Light Up Your Life travel agency, and of course, the Mad Book. This episode features an artist who loves pirates and has done work for Marvel and is a fine art instructor in the San Francisco Bay Area. Here he is, Richard Becker. Okay, on the phone today I have Richard Becker, who is an artist and illustrator. How are you today?
I'm doing just great.
And as I usually do on these podcasts, I usually just start out with, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into being an artist.
Oh, okay, sure. Something I just kind of always wanted to do. Always drew pictures as a kid, and fortunately back in high school had a good art teacher, and that's kind of all I ever wanted to do was become an artist, and seemed to do pretty well at it. So went to college, then majored in art at junior college, then went to art school, and after art school, just started working and been a supporting artist all my life.
Oh, very good. Was there anything that you did to help you break into the field, or you just have the talent that you have?
Oh boy, it's so difficult. It's just showing the portfolio around, trying to get jobs. Started working for a art studio for a while, Baxter Art and Design. Didn't make a lot of money, but certainly learned a lot about the business.
Mm-hmm. What type of stuff did you do there?
I was in the front office doing everything from business cards to billboards and signs and any kind of commercial work like that, because the main business they did was they would paint cars, do pinstriping, and this was back in the 70s when there were all those vans that had Rosetta images on them, and that's where they were making all their money, and I was kind of the guy doing more of the straight illustration.
Mm-hmm. Did you do any of the car painting yourself, or no?
No, they showed me some of the techniques and things, but no, the main people there, that's kind of what they did.
Oh,
They
okay.
were all good at it, and yeah, it was real interesting. You know, you paint on metal and using enamel and airbrush and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you? What type of training were you getting in school? Because it sounded like you were doing like more graphic arts or something for this company.
I majored in illustration,
Okay.
so it was a lot of figurative kind of things. Back in junior college, it was more fine art,
Mm-hmm.
landscapes, things like that. So while I did graphic design, it was what I mainly wanted to do was straight illustration, figures and things like that, editorial cartoons and yeah, that sort of thing, as opposed to graphics.
Mm-hmm. And then you said you wanted to be an artist from the beginning. What did art school do for you, just out of curiosity?
Well, it showed me a lot of technique. Certainly opened my eyes up to just the whole big world of art, and I was always very interested in comics, and just found there was just so much more than that out there.
Mm-hmm. What type of comics were you reading, and who inspired you, I guess, is also...
Oh, yeah. Back then, Marvel Comics, this was during that really great period in that would have been the mid to late 60s. Kirby, Ditko, those guys. And then a little later, there was some great stuff coming out of DC, like Neil Adams and who else? I'm sure there was a few other guys that I really liked.
Well, did you? I guess you liked some of the classic illustrators that have been around too. Prior to comics and things like that.
Yeah, Howard Pyle. That's one of my all-time heroes.
Mm-hmm. What is it about Pyle's work that inspires you?
Well, besides that he was just so good,
Yeah.
Was pirates. Just,
Yeah.
I was attracted to that imagery, and boy, he just did the classic pirates, and they still use him in all the books, and he kind of really set the look of what we think of pirates. Mm-hmm. So many of the early movies were based on his illustrations.
I'm just curious about him. It's like, since you do like pirates, what do you know much about him as a person? Why he was he did so many type of pirate paintings and things like that?
Well, that's kind of a funny thing. Is he was a Quaker.
Oh.
This back in the 1880s.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty conservative, quiet guy, and I guess it was just his imagination. He kind of just went counter to all that, and what he kind of dreamed about, and that was kind of the wildest thing you could think of at the time would be buccaneers and raiding ships and the Caribbean and all that stuff.
Now, do you think that, there's like a lot of pirate lore out there, and I'm sure you studied it and everything like that, that
yes,
it was kind of semi-fictional to completely fictional compared to what, happened in reality. Do you think Pyle was a contributor to that, to make kind of a more fanciful experience for being a pirate than just robbing a ship?
Well, he tried to get it as accurate as he could, but there just wasn't that much known. So much more has been discovered since his time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always finding new stuff. They're almost said unearthing, but they're finding old wrecked ships and just finding more and more stuff out about what really happened with them. And he was known for his accuracy, particularly of colonial period things. This is the Revolutionary War, Civil War, stuff like that. But with the pirates, he just kind of was making a lot of that stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
It was much more what was going on closer to his time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we now know that he got quite a few things wrong with his depictions, but still they're just so good.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you know how he did his paintings? Did he have live models, or did he do what a lot of people have, is like the proverbial morgue, either on paper or probably digital images now? But I mean, back then, or did he
Right.
kind
Yeah,
of create this stuff?
Yeah, with him, he would really work his designs out beforehand. He was always known for his terrific designing, and he'd work that out on small drawings, and then probably right at the end he'd get some models together, pose them.
Very good. And then other people that have inspired you, I know, is like you like J.C. Leyendecker, who did a lot of Saturday Evening Post covers. He's kind of forgotten nowadays compared to, like, say, Norman Rockwell. But what attracts you to his artwork?
Oh, Leyendecker is a great stylist, great designist. He was just terrific. Leyendecker, I managed to see quite a few of his original paintings. They're just terrific. Well, I don't know much more to say about that. They're big oil paintings. If people aren't familiar with his work, you should look him up. He kind of developed a certain look and style. He was really popular. He was like a rock star in his time. Mm-hmm. I've forgotten it.
I don't know much about him beyond Saturday Evening Post. What other did he do? Other covers and other paintings, or just any standard illustration for books or anything?
Oh, he did books and magazine work. Most of it was magazine covers. He was so popular. He got to do all the holidays. He was the guy who kind of originated the New Year's Baby.
Right.
And what else did he do? The Arrow Collar Man. That was a big commercial client he had. That was a line of dress shirts for men, and he had this model that was really handsome and just got to be a real big deal. Magazines were such a big thing back in the 20s, 30s.
Mm-hmm. Then another artist that you write about in your own bio is M.C. Wythe.
Oh, yeah.
So what's your inspiration from him? What do you like about him?
Oh, he was one of the strongest, and if you could break it down to being manly painters. His stuff is so strong, and it was life-changing. When I was in high school, I wanted to do realistic art, and one of my teachers, and they were all doing more abstract things, they said, there's a show you ought to go see. It's Andrew Wyeth, which is his son, and he was one of the few living realist artists you could go see a show of at the time. It may seem kind of odd, but museums would not show most living realists. That was considered old-fashioned. It was all abstract type of art at the time. So this would have been the late 60s, and went up to see the Andrew Wyeth show, and it was good. He's a terrific artist, but a bit bleak, these New England scenes. But in one room they had some of his father's paintings, and they're just these big, beautiful, full-color oil paintings of King Arthur and Robin Hood and pirates. And my eyes just popped out, and changed my life. I just said, that's what I need to do. And been pursuing that sort of classical style of painting my whole life.
Mm-hmm. Now, of these ones that we talked about, or anybody else you want to bring up, what is the key that kind of attracts you to their type of artwork? Is there consistency through all these people?
Yeah, there's just great craftsmanship. It was a lot of it had to do with the times. The Impressionists had been a big influence on a lot of American artists, and there was this kind of bold, strong colors, while still striving for a certain degree of realism that still attracts me. Some of my favorite landscape artists are American and particularly Californian Impressionists.
Is there anybody currently that you appreciate that's either famous or not famous? It doesn't really matter. I mean, that you really respect in the same way?
Oh, I tend to follow a lot of contemporary artists.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, like if you went to just a general museum, even if it had modern art or older art, Victorian art or anything like that, whatever. What type of thing would attract you? Would it have to be like a humans in some sort of action pose or something like that? Is that really what you?
Oh, no, not necessarily. I do go to museums a lot, and my tastes are pretty varied with that. I certainly can appreciate a lot of contemporary artists, and while I'm not a big abstract guy, I certainly can appreciate what some of those guys are doing, like Mark Rothko, even some of the better Jackson Pollock's. I'm not a big Pollock fan, but he did some pretty good paintings when he was sober.
How about Keane? No, just kidding.
After seeing that movie about him.
Yes, actually, that was a pretty good movie, Big Eyes. Yes.
I went back and started looking at some, and they look a lot better than they did back in those days.
Well, it's kind of funny, it is kind of interesting how sometimes things that can be considered hack work, even, I mentioned Norman Rockwell, there is a certain charm to his type of style, even if it seems very, almost, for lack of a better word, traced, in the way he does it. But
I like Rockwell. I think he was terrific. Certainly being recognized now as probably one of the artists of the century.
Yeah, but it seemed like when he was still living, even most people kind of poo-pooed him as like, just.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah, they did.
And you mentioned you like, or it says in your bio that you liked Edwardian illustrators. Are there any other illustrators that we haven't talked about that kind of?
Yeah, the Edwardians. There was a lot of children's illustrators that just did some beautiful work, like Arthur Rackham and Keith Robertson.
What did they do? I'm not completely familiar with their work. So.
Rackham in particular, he was a major influence on Walt Disney. He was painting at the 1880s through the probably early teens, and he did all the classic children's books. He did the better version of Alice in Wonderland. Just about everything you can imagine. He even did Wagner's Ring Cycle, and very influential on lots of people.
I'll have to look him up. Yeah, because I'm only, you mentioned Alice in Wonderland. I'm only familiar with, I never know how to pronounce it, Tenniel? Is that how it is? Or Tenniel?
Right. Yeah, you look at the Rackham version, and it's, I prefer it.
Now, was his first, or was it...
No, he was the second one to do it.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if, he might have been the original artist, and then they replaced him somewhere along the line, which sometimes happens in situations like that.
Yeah, it was the other way around, that there was the original version, and then they hired the most popular guy to do another version, and, you look at his, and it's just terrific, and a lot of the images people are familiar with. They just may not know his name.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other like children's books illustrators or anything else that you just admire their work?
Oh, there's so many. It's hard to come up with just a couple of names here and there. It's just there's been so many wonderful artists, and that's kind of my world.
What is your opinion of like the artwork like in the Wizard of Oz books and things like that, or the Winnie the Pooh books or things like that?
Oh yeah, they're great. It's not my particular favorite style. Right. I recently had a job where they wanted one of the images to be in that the Pooh style. That was,
I think it's Ernest Shepard is his name.
Shepard. Yeah, Shepard. And delightful stuff, but a little minimalistic or simple than I normally like, but beautiful. It's just beautiful stuff. And then the Wizard of Oz, really good stuff. But then again, not my particular favorite style, but that doesn't mean I don't like it, appreciate it, or anything. In fact, there was another illustration of that same job where they wanted, what was it, Scarecrow. It had to do with legal stuff, and a lot of the images had to do with describing this stuff with fantasy scenes, and one was the monkeys tearing apart the straw man, the Scarecrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Scarecrow, the flying monkeys and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was all about straw men, setting up an argument with straw men. Which,
oh, God, yeah.
that was kind of the concept.
Right. Now, you were also a teacher, I guess is the best word to say.
That's the day job. Yeah.
So when you teach art, what do you usually, like give us a 10-minute lesson or so, a 5-minute lesson of, what would you typically teach if somebody took one of your classes?
Yeah, two of the main things I try to get across, and this is a fairly typical, there's many ways of drawing and painting and teaching and learning how to do this, but
right.
One of the most popular is using basic shapes, which are circles and boxes and triangles, cylinders, and then seeing how the third dimension applies to them through light and shadow. And it's kind of, those are kind of the main concepts I try to get across, because they are fairly easy concepts for people to grasp, and then with practice you can make things look extremely realistic.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you teach people, is there a lot of training with just objects, or do you try to use those objects to actually create the human form right away?
Oh, no, that's just the starting place. It's getting the concept, learning how to see as an artist, how to superimpose these basic shapes on top of more complex forms like people, landscapes, bowls of fruit, just anything. And then using the idea of how light and shadow is one of the main ways we can tell the third dimension. Mm-hmm. And it's not difficult to learn how to do this, and not to say that it's easy, but it's not that hard. And with the average person with a little bit of practice can get these concepts and learn to draw or paint much better than they ever dreamed.
Do you believe that there are people that just cannot draw, or is that a fallacy?
Yeah, I've been teaching for about 38 years now, mm-hmm. and occasionally I get somebody who cannot get this. They can't see this version of 3 dimensions and turning into 2 dimensions, but that's pretty rare. Most people can get it, but there are some people that just can't see it.
That's interesting.
But it's pretty small percentage. I might have, through all these years and hundreds, if not thousands of people I've taught, it might be just a handful of people that just can't quite see it.
Yeah. Because, you've seen me draw. I draw like cartoony type stuff compared to you, but, it's like, I always have the feeling that most people could draw if they wanted to, and usually people who say, I can't draw, and I go, well, can you write numbers and letters and do basic shapes? Yeah. Then you can draw. That's how I feel about it. And then, I don't mean like doing big pirate scenes like you do, but, it's like, you could draw basic figures, not just stick figures if you had that ability, but that's what I found out.
It's a learned thing. An analogy I use a lot is when I was a kid, I had to take piano lessons. Mm-hmm. And I learned to play piano, kind of, but I didn't really want to do it. I was forced to take the lessons.
Yeah.
So, I kind of learned how to do it, but I didn't really need to learn. It was just somewhat forced on me. So I didn't practice much, so I didn't get very good, and I quit as soon as I could. Yeah. But I really wanted to draw, and it was just a matter of, most people can learn how to draw or paint much better than they ever imagined they could if they want to and are willing to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like music or sports. With most things, you could learn to be pretty competent if you're willing to do the work and practice.
Right. Yeah, I think I was the same way as you. I mean, I did take piano lessons, and what I got out of it, I didn't like to practice either much. I did learn how to play songs and could memorize things and everything, but what I got out of it is I learned music theory, which I still maintain to this day, and I know how to write music. So, I guess I got something out of it, but I'd rather have somebody else perform it. But
yeah, it's not everything is for everybody.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I guess I'm the same way that in art too. I mean, I can draw and I can paint and stuff like that, but when I know, other people like I've hired you before, can draw or paint better than I feel about myself, I will hire them, and use them, It's like, so, my books, I've had like Scott Shaw and Mike Cazella and other people do the covers because, I really admire their work, even though I could draw it myself, I suppose, but, yeah.
Well, right. It's a matter of practice.
Right.
That's another thing is that people kind of rely on this myth of talent, and while there is something to it, it's not a major factor. That, like we were saying, most people learn how to draw or paint. It's practicing, and when somebody looks at me, my paintings or my drawings, and they go on about all this talent I have, it's almost like a slight. Where I go, well, I had to practice probably every day for the last 30 years to be able to do this.
Right.
And you're kind of making it sound like I woke up one morning and could do it.
I actually saw that on Facebook today. I was looking around and somebody was just asking a general question, which got a whole bunch of responses, a lot from professional artists and stuff. Is talent innate, or does it take hard work? And can you be talented with hard work, or can you get somewhere if you just have talent and don't do any work? And all these different questions like that. And people had all these different opinions about it. I don't know, what do you think on that?
Yeah, talent will only get you so far. I mean, how many people that were so lucky in life? They were just born with all these advantages, and they just pissed them all away.
Right.
Where somebody who started out with some problem and they got past it through lots of hard work. And hard work will get you past so much more than just relying on some born ability that is pretty elusive.
Yeah. Well, the artists that I read, they pretty much said the same thing. It was the people that I didn't know if they were artists or not that were kind of saying differently. So I think it is kind of an artist mentality that, it's a combination of talent and hard work. One doesn't just happen automatically, but,
Yeah, we just don't see the struggle that so many people that sports are maybe a little more obvious where you can see professionals practicing all the time, but with artists, musicians, how many evenings do they sit alone in their room practicing their tuba or, whatever their art form is?
Yeah.
And nobody ever sees that until they go out and perform.
Right.
And then they, oh, look at all this talent you have. And people just, I don't want to believe. They kind of use talent as an excuse not to try.
True. And, it's like you go to a rock concert and everybody just assumes, hey, they just came out here and played. But more often than not, there's a rehearsal that they're doing, to, fine-tune everything before they actually play live,
Exactly, yeah.
So, you mentioned earlier, you were inspired by, like, Marvel and DC. And I've mentioned this before when I've talked to you before. You got the assignment that one time to do that Marvel book of how to draw Marvel characters. I don't have the name of it off the top of my head. You can correct me. How did that assignment come around?
Yeah, that was called How to Draw the Marvel Superheroes. That was a local company, Klutz Press, managed to get that. Well, they paid a whole lot of money to get the rights to do that. They were looking around for somebody to write the book, and because I'm a local teacher, and they were a local company, and they hire a lot of local kids as models, they kind of were asking, and some kid says, "Oh, Mr. Becker, he can show you how to do that." So they got hold of me. I went into the office, talked to the president of this multi-million-dollar company, and within a couple of minutes, I had him drawing pictures of Spider-Man, and got the job.
Now,
so it was that easy.
Were you drawing those characters at all before that, or is it just because you were local?
It was because I was local that I was, I guess, I don't know if it was the first person they called in, but it was because I was local, and it was easy enough for me to just stop by there. They were just in the next city down from where I live.
Right.
And I not only could tell them how to write the book, but I could draw the pictures.
Yeah.
And so I got to do the job, and then, about 10 years later, they had me redo the book, because a lot of the characters changed costumes.
Oh, okay. I never knew you did that.
So that worked out really good for me.
I never knew you redid the book. I probably have seen the original edition and thought that was all you did, but yeah. Did this ever lead to any other Marvel work, or was it just a one-off thing?
It didn't lead to any more Marvel work, but it did lead to some other. There was some kind of a pizza job where I think it was in New York, where there was a thing of how to draw some of the characters that were on pizza lids or something like that, and I don't know.
You mean like the chef with the winking eye, that type of drawing, or what?
No, it was pretty much just like with the book. It was just like you would buy the pizza, and then on the cardboard lid or the top of the box or something, it was instructions on how to draw Spider-Man.
And that wasn't from the book. That was additional work.
It was additional. It was through the same company. Somehow, I forget exactly how it all works, so I'm sure it was a licensed thing.
Right.
You just get away with, using their characters. But that paid really well and kind of interesting job. And then I did some more work for that company. Got to do Rocky and Bullwinkle in 3D. And,
wow.
and with they were into doing a lot of licensed characters. So I got to do Flash Gordon and Superman, and can't think of all of them, but there was just a lot of real interesting cartoon characters doing science projects.
What company was that? Was that still Klutz, or that was somebody else?
This was Klutz Press.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know you did all those things for Klutz.
Yeah, I worked on a few things for them. Really nice company. They have since been bought out by in New York and aren't around here anymore.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think the original book they had, and I'm sure you didn't have anything to do with it, but you're familiar with it, is Juggling for the Complete Klutz, where it had three, rubber balls or three cushion balls or something like that, if I remember correctly, packaged with the book. Yeah.
Right. That's what started the company. They did that in the garage, and that just made them into a multi-million-dollar company, and very people.
Now, those Marvel books, I think I've asked you before, those are long out of print, right?
Yeah, it's, when Disney bought Marvel, they had to renegotiate the contract, and they just didn't go for it, so yes, the books are now out of print.
Yeah, so probably no likelihood anytime soon for them to be reissued or anything, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, yeah. Are there any other high-profile projects that you've worked on that I may not be aware of?
Oh, yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean. That was.
Oh, that's right. You did do so. Tell us a little bit about that. What you did for them.
Yeah, because I was doing Pirates, and at the time there just wasn't a lot of people doing anything with Pirates. They had bought one of the books I did the cover, or I guess it was the back cover for, and they used that image for developing the costumes. And when I found out about that, I contacted them and I said, you evidently like my work. Is there anything else I can do for the company? And so when they did the DVD, they hired me to. So it was a couple of. It wasn't Disney. It was a Sony or a subdivision of Sony who did the DVD. So it was through all these kind of connections that I got to work on the Blu-ray version, and they used 32 images in that. And there was a whole other bunch of projects I was supposedly up for, developing some boxes for the toys, and there was a portfolio, but with so many of these things, just never happened.
Now, the stuff that did get done, which movie was that for? I mean, was it just overall for the Pirates series, or was there one specific movie that you were attached to?
The good one, the first one.
Oh, okay, the good one. Because I think isn't there 5 or 6 of them now, or something like that? It's like,
yeah, that was another real interesting thing. Was I did go down to Disney and talk to them down there while I was going through some of these projects, and just seeing what Hollywood's all about, and it's pretty unusual.
Did you ever try out to do anything for those movies, like costume design or set design or anything like that, or is it just?
I was up for it, but the way it works is with the first movie, it was a smaller budget film. And so there was more smaller people working on it, and then once it became a hit,
okay.
Then the big money people came into it, and it's just all this,
yeah, I get it.
real eye opener how all this supposedly works.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And of course, Disney is like big behemoth company now, not just a mom and pop shop like it used to be. So
yeah, but through that, I did get to work on some other DVDs. Probably one I'm most pleased with working on was Princess Bride, when they did the 25th year not remake, but reissue of the movie. I got to work on that and did a number of pictures in the special features. I just love that film. And it was.
Were there pictures like in a booklet, or are they on the documentary, or where were they used?
Yeah, they're on the documentary.
Oh, okay.
They've got all these special features, and they had just a lot of extras. Because if you already own the movie, why do you want to rebuy it? Well,
right.
You have extras. So there was, I forget if they were games or there was just a bunch of other extras that they wanted pirate images for. And got to work on that. Got one picture on Beowulf. That was...
Was that the CGI movie that was out a few years ago?
Let's see. Was it the CGI one? It was the one with Angelina Jolie.
Oh, jeez. I don't remember.
So I think it was a live action.
Oh, okay.
I guess there was a few Beowulf films.
Yeah.
But a painting of a Viking ship I did is on that one. And then I got to work on some TV shows. That was interesting. In Search of History, and what was that called? Sea Tales. Again, it was a lot of it had to do with the pirates and sea adventures and stuff. And my paint ships.
And what was that for? The History Channel or some other?
It was a couple of them were for the History Channel, and there was another one that was something like that, but it was a different show. I just forget the name of it. But one was about a steamship that was the worst water disaster until the Titanic. It was during the Civil War, it blew up. And there was another one about the battleship, the Potemkin. That was the first Russian Revolution. So I got to do a bunch of Russian revolutionaries in that one. So yeah, there's been some interesting jobs.
Do you ever do like anything like storyboarding or anything else for these movies, or like I said, costume design or set design or anything like that?
No, the Pirates of the Caribbean, they did use my illustrations for the costume designs,
That's
which
cool.
is kind of funny because I had this old bathrobe that I just kind of put some stuff on and stuck up the model, and then I fixed it up in the illustration, and that's one of the things I used in creating some of the costumes. So, well, I guess I had some influence on it.
And you've done a number of pirate comic books over the years. Are you still working on those?
No, I
Okay.
did, I think it was 8 issues of Bloodthirsty Pirate Tales, and then I turned it into a magazine, figuring that would be a better sale, and it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, magazines all over are having a tough time of it, so I wouldn't feel too bad about it. But and what other projects are you kind of currently working on then?
I've been working for a company called Golden Frog Press, and they do it's sort of like underground comics from the 60s, like Zap Comics, which I always loved when I was a kid. So I've been working for them doing kind of cannabis-oriented cartoons.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, you gave me one of those that you a few years back. That's pretty funny stuff. Do you write the material or you just draw it?
I do some of the writing, but mainly I just do the pictures. There's a couple of characters. Weed Wolf is one I write, and occasionally, and I do get to have some input on the stories, but generally I don't write them.
And when you're not teaching, what do you do in your leisure time? Is it just all painting and artwork, or do you have any other hobbies or interests that you do?
Oh, yeah. If I have a hobby, it's exercising.
Oh, that's cool.
I kind of am always been a gym rat, and yeah, so.
Well, I always thought you've been in incredible shape over these years. I was like, wow, I'm always kind of frumpy and dumpy, but anyway.
Yeah, that's one of the side effects of going to the gym all the time is it keeps you in shape.
Yeah. Let's see. What else can I talk about here? Are there any other artists that you care about, or any other movies or anything like that? Like, I assume because you like pirates, you like all the pirate things, like the Errol Flynn movies and things like that. Do you go out and try to get everything that you can, or is it just selective stuff?
Oh, yeah, I used to just go out and get anything I could until there was the big glut of pirate crap in, like a couple of years after Pirates of the Caribbean, the first movie came out, then there just got to be this incredible flood of pirate stuff. And at first it was kind of neat, and then after a while it just was a lot of shoddy stuff that oversaturated the market, and then pirates became passé because of that. I was pretty heavily into the pirate fairs. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of fun. They're kind of like the Renaissance Fair, only it's a lot better because it's pirates. And those were a whole lot of fun. Got to meet people from the movies, and a lot of it is making costumes and weapons and stuff, and that stuff was a lot of drinking rum. Those were great. Not so many of them now, but there sure used to be a whole bunch of them for a long time, and I was a minor celebrity at these things.
Where were they? Because, I grew up in the General Bay Area where you were, but were those in that?
Here they have over in Vallejo.
Okay.
I think that's still going on, but they would be in parks, generally in Southern California. A really good one was in Ojai, which is down near Ventura.
Okay.
It's just inland a bit,
right.
And that was so much fun. I used to do that every year, and yeah.
Okay, so they're more in Southern California. Okay, because I was thinking, I probably would have gone to them. I'm not as fascinated with pirates as you might be, but I do enjoy that genre to a certain extent. So once you said that, I go, I don't remember that being around, but I did go to my share of Renaissance fairs, so I get that type of culture.
Yeah, like that. Everybody dressed up and doing a lot of really bad Robert Newton imitations.
So you said you're like a minor celebrity. Is it just because of your artwork or other things, or?
Oh, because of working on Pirates of the Caribbean,
Okay.
and because I did the pirate books and that kind of stuff, I was sometimes a featured character at some of these things, and sometimes I give talks, and you know, they're always looking for somebody they can advertise as being some kind of a celebrity or something.
Of course. Is there any aspirations that you're kind of looking forward to doing in the future, or are you pretty much content with how life's working for you, or what would you like to do at this point?
I tend to paint a lot of landscapes now, doing more fine art. I'm at that where a lot of my contemporaries are retiring. I'm certainly not going to retire, but life has slowed down a bit. I don't need to scramble for jobs as much, and so I tend to just do a little more painting for myself.
Mm-hmm. Do you do any sort of art shows or anything like that?
Yeah, I do some of those, and I should be doing more. Business end is just never what I've been that strong at.
That's always the case, either, it's like me too, is like, I want to do more things, but, I always get stuck on the creative side more than the business side, so, hey.
Right, but you've been incredibly prolific with your books.
Yeah, but, it's like I always think, I could publicize this more, I could sell more doing this, and, I just kind of, but, hey, but... You know how it is, it's like you always have to straddle the line between business and art,
I know what you mean, it comes down to, like, want to go out and talk to art directors, or I want to sit home and paint,
Right. And what attracted you to doing more landscape now? Is it just a new challenge, or what's going on there?
Oh, I've always painted landscapes. Just being outside on a nice day, painting pictures of it, just a wonderful way to spend some time. And
oh, okay. So you actually are like out in the field at different locations painting landscapes. It's nothing from memory.
Yeah, when it's good weather.
Yeah, of course.
Living in the Bay Area, we have so many nice days. You get spoiled when you live around here, where so many people live in other parts of the country, have to brave the elements.
Right. Yeah, even up here, it's raining right now, and, probably sometime in the next month or two it'll snow at some point, but...
Exactly, yeah.
Are there any particular types of landscapes that you like to do more than others, or is it just anything that strikes your fancy if you're driving around and say, oh, this looks good?
Well, one thing I also do a lot is seascapes, living next to the coast. That's always a real pleasure, painting the waves and waves breaking on the rocks, and so I tend to do a lot of that. But just a lot of trees. These fall colors are really nice to paint. We're having now, and just kind of landscapes. If anybody looks me up on Facebook, they can see some of my paintings.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of leads me to my next question. Is I assume you do commissions, correct?
Yeah, I do.
So, if somebody was interested in a painting from you for whatever type, how would they get into contact with you?
Oh, yeah, probably the easiest thing is to go on Facebook and get hold of me through that, or my email is rbecker3000@yahoo.com.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's actually preferable, having people come to me rather than me go out and try to drum up business.
Mm-hmm. But I know you've done some shows in the past. Do you have any shows planned for the next few months or anything at this time?
Oh,
like comic shows or art shows or anything like that?
Tomorrow I'm going to be at the San Jose Toy Show.
Oh, okay.
One of the companies I'm working for is going to be there. They want me to be there and sign comics, and so
Is that same comic company that you're doing the weed comics, as it were?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now, who runs that company?
Yeah, a guy named Vince Dugar. He does a lot of the writing and in the business, and kind of trying to bring back the spirit of the '60s.
Right.
And so, yeah, we get along really well, and yeah.
Any other show? Do they still do the Ape? I know they had it for a while and then it stopped, and I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
The last two were pretty poorly attended.
Okay.
So it was pretty disappointing. It was such a good show. I think such an important thing. The Ape's the Alternative Press Expo.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's a real important thing. I've always really believed in that. Particularly younger people wanting to get involved with this and do their own publishing. So much creativity is out there, and it's so hard to get something in some of the established markets. And then with the distribution, with the comic book distributors, Diamond is not as easy to work with as they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great place for people to do their books and sell them, get some recognition, and unfortunately it's just not happening anymore.
Right. But do you think it's really that important at this time because so much stuff is online? I mean, now you could do your own webcomic or whatever.
Right, and that certainly is a good alternative. It's not quite the same thing as the printed thing from that people can have, hold in their hand, and collect.
Mm-hmm. And the comics that you're selling, are they through Diamond, or do you have to get them through the mail or at the shows like you're doing?
Yeah, for some reason, just maybe because of the cannabis theme, Diamond doesn't want to deal with them, or it's just the way it works. You have to generate a certain number of sales through them before they'll handle you.
Right.
With the pre-orders through the stores, and they keep raising the number. But like I said, I'm not doing the publishing myself, so
right. But yeah, I get it because that was my difficulty with the fanzine I used to do about Harvey Comics. It got to the point where I just had to stop because they kept changing the rules, and I wasn't making any money anymore on it. And also.
Exactly.
Internet took over and other things, and so that's why I got over into the books, which I have gotten a few of those through Diamond, since, because it only if they're comic book related, so I can't get all my books through them, but
right, books are a better deal all the way around, a bigger ticket price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not such sticklers about how many you can sell. If they think they can sell it, they'll usually carry it, unless it's about a topic that's so obscure that they'd go, but most of the time if it's about any sort of comic book, they usually will take it, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So some things work much better than others. Back in the old days, there was, maybe 10 different distributors. It was more work having to fill all these orders, but there were so many more orders, and you were making more money, and they all wanted you to go with them, and
Mm-hmm.
Of course now I'm starting to reminisce about the good old days.
Yes. Well, I think about it too, and I go, I used to think that it could come back. Now I'm not so sure. It's like, it just seems like that era is over and done, unfortunately. It's like...
Yeah, I don't see any change myself.
Yeah. Let's see, what else can we talk about? Let's see. So there's another question I had, and I'm trying to think of what it was. Anyway, shoot. I'm going to edit this out so it doesn't sound like I'm straining for something. Damn, the question just eluded me. I was wondering if you worked in any other mediums besides just painting. I mean, do you do any just like standard sketch drawing with charcoal or pencil or anything else? Or what type of mediums do you like to work with?
Yeah, I do dry medium, charcoal and graphite, and pen and ink, of course. Mm-hmm. Most of the comics are done that way. I don't tend to do much digital work, or actually nowadays I don't do any. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of an expert in the traditional media, so I stick with that. Most of the painting is watercolor, oils, or acrylic.
Okay. And for ink, what do you use, a pen or a brush or both if you're inking something?
I use both. I really like the Japanese pen brush by Pentel. I use that for a lot of my inking. Mm-hmm.
I always ask people what they prefer. Like I did an interview with Joe Staten pretty recently, and he's pretty old school. He says he still likes to do with the pen and the brush for Dick Tracy. So, but other people, they have transferred over to digital. So, I'm always curious what people do in this day and age, if they're still, using, the basic Bristol boards or canvases or whatever you use.
It's probably an age thing. It's probably a lot of us older guys are using the traditional things because that's what we've always used. And
have you done things the other way though, if it's necessary?
I used to. I used to be fairly good at Photoshop. I'd scan things in and fix things up, and now I just don't bother.
And like I said, it's like people can contact you for commissions. Is there anything that you would like to draw for people, or do you pretty much do your own thing?
Oh, I've always looked at it at jobs where it's my goal for them is visual problem solving. So people come up with ideas of what they want, and I've got to figure out how it's going to look on a page. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like that because certainly with my own work, I'm making up whatever I want. Mm-hmm. So particularly with landscapes, I find that very satisfying. But I think I prefer if people want a picture from me that they would say what they want and be very specific as opposed to just say, well, whatever you want to do.
Right. Well, if I remember correctly, and of course we're talking about my ex-girlfriend now, but at the time, you did a Tooth Fairy book for her, and I believe you got some pretty good direction on that. So what type of things did she say that you liked about working on that project?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. The Tooth Fairy book was, she was pretty specific on that. But even with that, there's so much input I had on specifically where characters are placed and their size, the relationship of things. That is, as specific as somebody is, there's still so many choices that the artist gets to come up with. I find that very satisfying.
Now, I didn't see all the steps you did on that book, but did you do a bunch of rough drafts and things like that, or pretty much final sketches?
Always do that, where I'll send the client, and it's so convenient now with the phone, just taking the pictures of the sketches and sending them that, making sure they're happy with the layout and a pencil stage. Then I build it up in values, and then sometimes, particularly with new people, I'll do a color sketch before I do the finish. Mm-hmm. So there's no surprises, but that's a pretty traditional way of working.
So you're open to any sort of work like that if it comes along.
Yeah, can't really think of anything I wouldn't want to do. I wouldn't want to work for the tobacco industry.
Oh, okay.
I think I'd draw the line there. I think that's an evil company or companies.
Right.
The vaping, cigarettes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They have no soul.
I'll have to agree. I know some people that do imbibe, but it's like I just don't get it. But anyway,
If they want to smoke or not,
yeah,
it's the companies who are lying and coming out with these products. The fact they put something in the cigarette papers so they won't go out by themselves.
right.
People burn to death just so they can make more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. I just wanted to find out a little bit more about your career and everything, and sounds like you're doing a lot of different good projects. Any final words of wisdom?
Oh, if anybody really wants to learn how to draw or paint, you can. Don't fall into this thing that you got to be born with talent. That what we went over. It's
Right.
a learned thing, just like anything else. So hopefully this will inspire some people.
All right. And I appreciate you, Richard, being my podcast guest today, and I thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening, and thank you, Richard Becker, for being my special guest. Episode number 62 will be coming soon. If you would like to comment and or be a guest on this podcast, please drop me a line at funideas.mark@gmail.com. Become a Patreon of Mark Arnold and Fun Ideas Productions. If everyone listening just contributed $1 a month, that would be a tremendous help in continuing the production of my books and this podcast. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The opening and closing music for the Fun Ideas podcast is provided courtesy of Andrew the Slow Poisoner Goldfarb and is used with permission. This has been the Fun Ideas podcast. This is Mark Arnold speaking. This episode is copyright 2020, Fun Ideas Productions. Thank you, and good night.
Lace to rhinestone kisses on those blind eyelids and drive with your velour chauffeur across the river Styx. Popping creation pills in the pink electric church. The final flicker of your lewd jeweled boob to